Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 4 of Gratitude City, a place where we go to get good vibes, feel motivated and uplifted, and be part of a community of people with the mission to be good, be nice, be kind, and shine a bright light on this world. Our guest today is Janelle Foligno, dedicated supermom of 3 beautiful children, wife of Nick Foligno, captain of the NHL's Columbus Bluejackets, children's author, and co-founder of the Heart's Playbook, which is a foundation dedicated to heart health research and care. So without further ado, Janelle Foligno, welcome to Gratitude City. How are you doing today?
Hi, Kris. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm doing great. Thanks. Hope you're doing the same.
It's good to hear that you're doing the same. Let's jump right into it. To start every show, what I like to do is ask the guests a little bit of what they were like as a kid, just to kind of build a little foundation, get a little context at who you were. So talk to us about young Janelle. Growing up, what kind of things were you into, what you did for fun, where you grew up, things like that.
So I was born and raised in Sudbury. I grew up in a really small family. My family's French Canadian. I have one younger brother. It's like a family with 2 first cousins that were basically like siblings, the 4 of us. And I grew up going to French Catholic school my whole life. I think people would be really surprised if they don't already know me that I was quite different as a child than I am now. I was just always really laser focused on school and quite a perfectionist, I'll say, and that kid that just always tried to be teacher's pet in every circumstance. I was the president of the yearbook committee in high school. I was always really involved in student council. I was not sporty at all. I'm still not very sporty, but I was the kid who tried every single sport or activity, but I never stuck with anything. I just kind of dipped my feet here and there, and I just wanted to do what my friends were doing. But deep down, I think like if my parents let me not do any activity or sport, I wouldn't. I would have just been happy to kind of do my studies and go from there. But one thing that is the same from being younger and carried over now is that I'm really truly an introvert, but I'm really good at like pretending that I'm an extrovert. So
very important skill to have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've learned it over the years, but
and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with being an introvert. Lots of people, there's kind of this like almost, I don't want to say stigma, but it's like some people have this thought that being introverted is bad and being extroverted is good. But if you can strike a balance and get the benefits of both, I feel like that's the kind of space where people want to really be.
Yeah, it's so true. I just think that people, when they meet me, they assume automatically that I'm this really confident extrovert person when, to be honest, that's not the truth at all. I'm more of like an introverted and self-conscious girl at times. So that's kind of been the same since being young. But other than that, I feel like I've changed and evolved so much from when I was little.
And most people do. I mean, I bet you that there are your core personality traits that have translated through, but man, like I would consider it hard pressed to find someone who at 33 is the same as when they're 5. Now the essence will translate through, but man, like our interests and what we do and how we want to spend our time and kind of even what makes us tick, will change dozens of times, maybe dozens. Yeah. Who knows? 6 at least, maybe. How did you and Nick meet?
So it's a little bit of a long story. I'll try to shorten it up because we've been basically like intertwined kind of since we were young. His parents obviously were born in Sudbury. Yeah. And my parents grew up best friends with his aunt and uncle. And we ended up living down the street from his aunt and uncle, and their kids and us became like, we used to call each other cousins because we were like that close growing up. And so I always knew about the Folignos. They would always live out of town because Mike was either playing or coaching at the time. So they would come back to Sudbury and visit. And so I would see them at my friend's house but never enough to really get to know any of them. And then fast forward to when they came back to live in Sudbury, when Janice, the mom, had gotten sick, and they moved back to Sudbury to be with family, and Mike started coaching the Wolves, and then Nick ended up moving and playing for the Wolves. Our brothers are the same age, and they ended up playing on the same hockey team together for a few years. And so we would see them.
Proximity.
Yeah, so it was kind of always like we were always intertwined, like I keep saying, but it never really came to anything, because I wouldn't even go to my brother's games. Like I would never really get into that scene. It wasn't an interest of mine at the time. But then, later on, I think it was honestly through MSN Messenger, which dates me a lot. But
yeah, I love it. After school MSN.
Yeah, it was like Nick asking me if I was gonna go to the boys' game or something, and then we just started talking. And our first date was at Tim Hortons. Actually, he calls it our first date, but I still say that we were just meeting for coffee, which we both had hot chocolates, and we were young. I was second year university, and he was first year, and yeah, we were really young, but we've come a long way, and that's kind of how it all started.
So if that's the first date to Nick, but what do you classify as your first date? Like your first date?
Yeah. We went to lunch at Casey's, which was a restaurant in Sudbury at the time, and again, dates me because it's no longer there, but
the good old coffee date. That's a classic.
Yeah, and he likes to tell this story, and a lot of people have already heard it if they know us, but that at the end, and because remember, I didn't think that this was a date, so at the end, I just walked out and I owned a truck at the time, so I went and I got in my truck and I left, but he had opened the door for me, and then an older lady was coming, so he kept the door open for her, and he said by the time I got out the door, she was waving to me in her truck, waving to me goodbye, but I was like, yeah, because it wasn't a date.
Oh, classic Nick. Nick the gentleman holding the door cost him that first kiss. That would have been it right there. He probably would have walked you to your car, opened your door for you like a gentleman, and planted one on you right then and there.
But I was already gone.
Right. Okay. So that maybe, did he explain that to you, or did you go into the next first date without that?
No, I don't think he talked about it until like much later, where he was like, what was that?
He held that in.
Yeah. Because I don't think I realized. I was just like, okay, see you later.
Yeah. Yeah. So Nick was in my grade at Lockerbie, and he was laser focused, and he never really partied. He would come to parties, but he would never really party, and was relentlessly in pursuit of his goal of making the NHL. When you guys started dating, how does that translate? Like having to kind of share the spotlight with his kind of like, his other love, and until you guys actually fall in love, that the thing that really has his heart. How was that? Like, how are you, that someone who commits so much time and energy to something?
Yeah, well, I'll say that it's always something that I've loved about Nick, how determined and passionate he is about everything in life. But of course, it's always been hockey. And just from knowing him, and even from the beginning, you can tell that, and he would be open about it. Like, I have no plan B. This is my plan A, and it's the only plan, and I'll do whatever it takes to get there. He never even made any second plan. Like, he always would say, if somebody asks him, if you're not a hockey player, what will you be? And his answer is always, I don't know.
I'm going to be a hockey player.
Yeah, he never thought about it. He said, I was always going to be a hockey player. So that was something that you could just tell. And as we got further into the relationship, I fit in, seamlessly in a way, because it was new love, and we were kind of working through it all together, and I would just go to his games. And I also didn't really understand all of it as much as I do now, which I think helped me out at the time because I was kind of learning as I went, and I didn't have any predisposed thoughts about it. It was just like, whatever happens, happens, and I'm not really sure what he's doing, so I'll figure it out as I go along.
Right.
And his mom was actually really helpful to me too, because she had been through it with Mike.
Right.
Mike was in high school when they met, and he was already starting his hockey career too. So she was really helpful in explaining that all to me. And just, Nick is a lot like his dad, and so she was able to tell me a lot of like their personality and when it comes to hockey, what it's like. But it's just been really neat to see it all progress and be there almost from the beginning, and just, his passion for the game just come to fruition. So it's been awesome to be a part of. But I remember him telling me all these stories about when he was in high school, and part of me didn't really believe him that he was so focused. But even in talks with his trainer and stuff, he still has the same trainer from the beginning, Cal McGibbon. And Cal would say like he never missed a 6 a.m. workout. He was always there, and it was never going to be an issue with him to stray.
And that's what it takes to have no plan B. If you're not going to have a plan B, if you're going to put 100% of the physical, emotional, spiritual eggs into one basket, you owe it to yourself. The only option is to go all in. And those are the people that we see excelling in hockey and in any facet of life, are the people that actually go all in. Because especially in something as competitive as making it to the NHL, like, if you're not working out every day at 6 a.m., there's someone that's going to be faster and stronger and better than you. And it only helps that Nick has that inborn kind of leadership kind of heart too. So the dude's fearless, man. It's not easy to put all your eggs in one basket, especially when that end result is the NHL. That's a ton of commitment. So big shout out to Nick for just giving her and having a massively successful NHL career. But also back to what you said about, that's something that you always love about Nick, is that is to a lady or to a partner an attractive quality to, because that if he can be that committed, that he's going to be committed as a father, as a husband, right? And that's translated into everything that you guys have kind of built. So that's awesome. And there are so many questions that popped into my head when you were talking. So now I'm just trying to get them all out before I forget. And so Dylan's gonna have to be really creative with this segment. Is that the coolest part about the intertwinement of you and Nick is very, like, you have that kind of entire lifespan look at what an NHL player's journey looks like as a player, like a Timbit, as in Adam and Pee Wee, and like that whole kind of thing. That's so cool.
So I didn't like know him during those moments, but I feel like with what his mom and his dad were able to tell me, and what Nick's been open about too, just about what it was like at every stage, it's really cool. And like now our son is playing hockey, and so we're kind of living it through his eyes. Not to say that, and he fully tells us that he doesn't want to play in the NHL, but it's cool to see every stage with him now and what he'll turn out to be. So just tying it in with Nick and his dad, and it's
so cool. Third generation hockey stud. Well, all of that hard work paid off, and in 2006, Nick got drafted by the Ottawa Senators. where he split his time between Ottawa and the Binghamton Senators, which is their AHL affiliate. So what did that all look like?
So I was living in Sudbury at the time, going through teachers college. So I obviously stayed there and finished my studies. And he was, like you said, between Binghamton and Ottawa. And we did the long distance thing, but it was a little bit harder in the sense that we couldn't really ever plan for me to go visit. And we did end up getting around it, but he never really knew where he was going to be. You know, he'd be having
Right.
good games in Binghamton. So we figured like he'd probably be getting called up, and I didn't really know where to plan to go visit him because it could change at any time. So I definitely didn't see him as much as we would have liked that year, but I was pretty focused on my studies, and he was obviously really laser focused on what he needed to do to be able to stay in Ottawa. So luckily he had his cousin that he lived with in Ottawa at the time. She was engaged to a player from the Ottawa Senators, actually Wade Redden, and so he lived with them when he was in Ottawa. And then when he got sent down to Binghamton, then he had an apartment there. And so I did end up visiting Binghamton once and Ottawa, I think once. And it was funny because the time I went to visit him in Binghamton, I had taken like planes, trains, and automobiles to get there. I didn't even know where it was, like coming from Sudbury. And
Binghamton's in New York. It's in New York, right?
It is in New York. Yeah. So the day that I was leaving, I was sitting on the Greyhound bus. He had dropped me off. I was sitting on the Greyhound bus ready to do my trek back to Sudbury, and he called me telling me that he had just been called up to Ottawa. And I was like, that would have been a much easier trip to just drive to Ottawa. But so that's kind of how that year went. It was just a lot of moving parts.
That's hilarious. And then in 2008 he got called up full time to the Sens, joined the team. At what stage are you guys at this point? Like, did you move to Ottawa right away at that point, or kind of I guess you would have been done teachers college by then? So what did that look like when he got drafted to Ottawa? Did you guys be like, you know what, enough of this separate back and forth kind of stuff, let's just kind of do this?
Yeah, well, the serendipitous thing about it being Ottawa was that I had always grown up wanting to live in Ottawa. I actually wanted I wanted to go to school in Ottawa, but decided to just save money and stay home. And so Ottawa was always in the back of my mind of somewhere that I would love to live. And when that transition happened for Nick, we were at a pretty serious point in our relationship where we decided that I would go to Ottawa too. But for me, I was going with him in a sense, but for my own thing. So I got a teaching job in Ottawa, and my cousin was going to school in Ottawa. So I lived with my cousin, and Nick bought a house and lived with one of his teammates there. And so we lived separately in the city, but we were still at least in the same city where we could see each other when we wanted to.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. When you guys want to not have to take a flight, a plane, and a connector to make it happen. That's funny. So you're a teacher, you're doing your teaching thing, and then you were involved with Cystic Fibrosis Ottawa. What kind of made you want to start getting involved with charities at that time? That's pretty early in the game to start doing things like that.
Yeah, so Nick and I, and it mostly stems from Nick, to be honest. He's always been that type of philanthropist type person, where I think it came from his family and his dad and having gone through that path. And one thing his dad always said to him was, be good to the game and the game will be good to you. And one of the things that Nick takes from that is that be involved in the community that you're in and try to make a difference in any way that you can. And so I quickly adopted that with him too. And it was something that was really important to us whenever we were in whatever community we were in, to get to know the people, get to know, where the needs are, and try to help in any possible way. And so with cystic fibrosis, we were introduced to it by a teammate of his. And it's when we really got to know the families behind the events that we were going to and supporting that we really bought in even further. I remember going to visit one of the families where both of their boys were living with cystic fibrosis, and they walked us through kind of what a day in their life looks like, and seeing the countless medications, the machines that had to beat their chest to loosen up the secretions.
Mm-hmm.
Just them talking about the fact that they couldn't even own a dog because any bacteria or any dust, anything could really set them off. And the sacrifices that they had to make in their everyday lives so that they can try to remain as healthy as possible. It was just, we couldn't help but want to be involved with it. And so it was something that we held really close to our heart while we were in Ottawa, and we still keep in touch with some of these families. So yeah, it was.
That's special. That's nice. And that kind of goes to speak to really the place in your heart that all this work is coming from, and how it's just built into you guys to give back to the community. And it is true, man, when you see the actual impact of the fruits of your labor and see how your support, whether that be time, energy, money, whatever that support is, that you give, that the collective you, us, people who give back to the community in general, when we do that, it's so much easier to be able to, I wouldn't say easier, but it's when you see the impact that you can make, or when you see kind of the reason why we're in this fight, it really hits home, like you said. And that is so cool that you guys still keep in touch with some of the families. That was like 14, 15 years ago that you got involved. So that's pretty awesome. Were you involved with any other what other charities? I'm sure I was gonna say what other ones, but based on hearing that, it's probably better to ask you what other charities or organizations you were involved with.
Yeah, so the Sense Foundation was super involved.
Obviously, yeah.
But we were involved with everything that they did. A lot of pediatric cancer type organizations, and then the CHIO hospital there. But personally, individually, for myself, I was involved with an organization that dealt with women and men who were faced with eating disorders, and like kind of the mental health side of it. So I was introduced to this organization called Fab Women, and I created a 6-week program for young girls and boys where I would travel in the middle schools and do this program with them once a week that would foster a healthy body image and kind of the eating disorder awareness and prevention type work. So that was something that was really special for me to do myself. And then, of course, supporting all of the Sense Foundation endeavors and things that Nick would get involved with in any extra time too.
Very cool. Very cool. That's so on top of teaching, that's a pretty packed life. Once you start stacking all that stuff up, you're a teacher, you're doing your own thing, you're involved with all these charities, and I'm assuming there's only a whole gambit of things associated with being the wife of a person who's starting to be more involved in the community and have more kind of responsibilities as a player in the end. And then so you guys are setting up your lives, you guys are in the community, you're building lives, you're making friends, and then Nick gets traded to Columbus. First of all, was that something that you guys were kind of made to be aware of leading up to it? Or was it something that was just kind of sprung on you guys? And what was that like, having to kind of pack everything up and move to a new country?
Yeah, we definitely were not expecting it. Nick might have a different opinion on that, but I certainly was not expecting it at all. It came as quite a shock. And actually, we found out by Nick's younger brother, Marcus, had seen it on Twitter. He was like, did you get traded? And so it was a
What?
complete shock. Yeah, because Nick, it was a long story, but Nick had left his phone in the car and we had gone somewhere, and then it was during that hour that everything had transpired, and he had like 12 missed calls on his phone. But so that's how we found out. And I immediately started crying because I was thinking about everything that you said, like how I was so settled there. I had my own thing going. I had a job, and hockey was going well for Nick, and he was really loved in the community. And so I just really didn't think that this could ever happen, but it, brought me back down to reality that this is a business, and
Yeah.
hockey can take you anywhere. And so I was kind of wrapped up in my own self, and I didn't think to ask Nick what he felt about it until a few minutes later, where I was like, wait, how do you feel? And he was really actually said, you know what, I'm looking forward to a new opportunity, and this team wants me, and I'm excited about it, and like, let's do this. And so I quickly had to pull myself together and say, okay, put my, my big girl pants on, and what we were meant to go through.
Yeah, and that speaks to Nick's whole kind of plan A personality is this trade's going down. Like you said, the business of the game, this trade's going down. So as sucky as it could be that you got to be, you've spent 5 years building a life in Ottawa, you've got a lot of things going on. But if this is going down, he's going to be pumped about it, because that is how you make the best of this opportunity. And he did. He became the captain. He's running show over there. He's number one in points in some of the seasons. He won that leadership award a couple of seasons ago. So things are going great. And it seems like it was a great kind of move for him in his career. How did things look that first little bit in Columbus? Like, what is Columbus like? It looks like there's a lot of cool stuff there.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was the lockout year, and ended up being a lockout year. That was his first year in Columbus. So he actually didn't start playing until that January. So it gave us a little bit of time to set ourselves up and get an apartment and kind of tour the city a little bit. And we fell in love with it right away. We had been told from the beginning, players that had heard about the trade, former players that he had played with would call him and say, you're going to absolutely love it there. And we actually came to find out that a lot of players who play in Columbus and retire will either come back to Columbus or stay in Columbus. There's actually a big alumni
group. Cool.
It's just, you fall in love with the city. It's got like a small town feel in a little bit of a bigger city. We have like a world-class zoo, a lot of amazing attractions for the kids. And it's just, the people are so nice. There's a lot of livelihood to this city, but also some amazing, beautiful residential pockets too. And so we really end up loving it here, which is funny because at first I was small town Sudbury girl, had never heard of Columbus, Googled it, said it was Ohio. I had to Google where Ohio was. Like, I had no concept of where I was going at all. And now we just love it here. And I feel like we're just a part of the community, and we couldn't see it any other way.
That's amazing. The biggest thing that I've seen that I am of most interest of in Ohio is it Cedar Point or Cedar Rapids, the massive amusement park that's in Ohio?
Yeah, it's I think it's like in the Cleveland or Cincinnati area or something. I don't think it's very far from here, but yeah, Ohio has a lot to offer.
Yeah, I saw a zoo, I saw Science Center. You guys have a sweet Science Center from what I saw.
We do, yeah. It's like
but Science North, where are you putting it?
I know.
Where are you putting it? I'm actually curious.
I was about to like compare it to Science North, but Science North, you can't really even compare it because it's its own gem in itself. And it would be like Science North on steroids, I would say. It's like very much the Kozai is what it's called, and it's humongous. And so it's got the same concepts as Science North, but yeah, I wouldn't even compare them because I love Science North, and obviously growing up having gone there, and it is just very different because it's northern and everything surrounding the north. So
Right.
can't really compare it, but it's an awesome place for the kids, and the kids just have so much to do here in Columbus.
That's awesome. Well, that's really cool. That's interesting. I had no idea. It's cool to hear that Columbus is such an awesome place that these NHL players, when they retire and they have the means and experiences to retire anywhere, that Columbus is where they decide to kind of live when they hang up the skates. I think that's a real testament to just how awesome the city is.
Yeah.
So a couple of seasons into your tenure in Columbus, your real career started when you welcomed your first daughter, when your only daughter now, you welcomed your daughter Milana into this world. Milana was born with a congenital heart disease and had to have open heart surgery at 3 weeks old. As a parent with a son who's basically had his whole heart reconfigured, I'm curious, what was Milana's diagnosis, and in that first surgery, what did the surgeons do to kind of address that? Like,
yeah, so Milana was born, and within 24 hours they find out that she has a congenital heart defect, and they move us hospitals. She's now at Nationwide Children's Hospital, and we move over there. And it was a lot of back and forth in the beginning to actually find a diagnosis for her, because she had a lot of similarities to what's called Schoen's complex, which is a lot of abnormalities on the left side of the heart, but usually it comes with 3 or 4 severe defects on the left side of the heart. And she was showing with one severe, which was her mitral valve was not functioning at all. But there were other issues, but they were not large enough to really say that they were Schoen's complex. So they landed on mitral valve arcade, which is severe regurgitation of her mitral valve, causing backflow into her heart and fluid build up into her lungs. But even when we had been to Nationwide Children's and Boston, we heard a lot of different diagnoses. They really couldn't come. They were saying mitral valve disease, mitral valve arcade, Schoen's complex. And I would be really nervous when I would hear the Schoen's complex, because that would require even more care than she was already going to have. And so we settle on mitral valve arcade because it's really her mitral valve that's the larger issue right now anyway. You know, things can come up as she gets a little bit older based on she has a little bit of a narrowing in her aorta and things like that. But right now it's the mitral valve. And so when she was 3 weeks old and had her surgery in Boston, they ended up replacing the mitral valve entirely. They originally started with a repair, hopeful that they might be able to hold a repair for a little while, but her surgeon just wasn't happy with how the repair turned out. So he followed up with a full replacement. And at the time, and the reason we chose Boston was they were doing an experimental surgery where they were placing a valve made from a cow's jugular, and they were putting it into a stent and putting that into kids so that they can be hopeful that they could inflate the valve as the child grows, rather than typically with a mitral valve, any other option would mean several open heart surgeries before
as
the
child grows.
Exactly. And so we kind of put both feet in and just jumped in with the experimental side of things because we wanted to give her the best chance of survival. They were telling us that, you know, survival was 50% beyond the age of 2. So we wanted to give her the best possible chance, and we were willing to take the experimental route. She was the 17th child in the entire world to have this valve put into her. And I think since there's been probably almost 70. So they've come a long way. it served her really well.
So that 50-50 was with the experimental surgery, or 50-50 of the traditional surgery, so you guys went with the cow jugular?
Yeah, so 50-50 without.
So if you
And
guys would have went the traditional route, 50-50 shot of her living
yeah,
past 2.
and there wasn't enough data for them to tell us what the chance was.
Yeah, well,
What,
17 in the world, like, that's crazy.
so we just had to have faith. And then just in the conversation with the surgeon, I could not be more confident in what he had to tell me. So that's what we decided with.
And so Evvy's actually had a mitral valve repair. That was his 4th surgery. When you say that the surgeon wasn't happy with it, was it like in the OR he wasn't happy with it, or there was some recovery time? She wasn't getting the response that they wanted to see, so that they went, and then they went back in and did the repair. What was the timing of that decision?
It was in the OR. So they had told us to prepare for a 5 to 6 hour surgery. And when we were coming up on like 7.5, and he wasn't out yet, he then told us after the 8.5 hour mark, told us the reason was because he did the full repair and he was watching it, and he said it was holding, but he just wasn't confident that it would hold enough
No.
long enough. And so he decided to do the full replacement, which we were prepared for from the beginning. The repair would have just been kind of a bonus if she didn't have to have a prosthetic valve, but he prepared us for the full replacement. And so that's what he ultimately did. So we didn't know.
That's interesting then, that the surgery is supposed to take 5 to 7, and then in 8.5 there's not only that observation time, but he goes in and he does the whole replacement in like an hour. That's pretty cool.
Well, I think what ended up happening was they told us the 5 to 7 because the 7 would have been the replacement and the 5 would have been the repair, I think. And so then I think
Okay, got it. And then you throw in the observation time, you're right in the wheelhouse. Okay, that's pretty cool. So after Evvy's repair, they told us the same thing. They said, we're hoping for repair, but if we can't do it, we gotta replace it. Fortunately, he was able to have the repair and it held, and his recovery was about 2 weeks before we were discharged to RMH. What was Milana's recovery time? And kind of what was her recovery like after the full replacement?
After the full replacement.
And sorry, but at birth, like I remember, Evvy's recovering from that Fontan, like there's such little peeps, and oh man, like, yeah. So what's that recovery like after a full valve replacement?
Yeah, the recovery when she was 3 weeks old, because she then had her valve replaced again when she was 5 years old, but being able to now compare the two, it was definitely more extensive when she was a baby. The recovery time when she was 3 weeks old was, I think though, and I was still really amazed because I think she was 10 days in the hospital after her replacement. We had to stay locally in Boston for about 2 weeks after that so that they can follow her up and make sure everything was okay. But she was 10 days in the hospital.
Wow.
The replacement. She just, like, her heart just needed it so bad that it was like, it just started to, she really improved so much after the replacement, because it was really dicey before the replacement, to be honest, and they were hopeful that they could even do surgery on her at that point. And so afterwards, to see her go from like 0 to 60 so quickly was really amazing. And then when she was 5 years old, it was cut in half. It was even faster. I remember being like not even ready to leave the hospital. I was like, "Are you guys sure we can leave?" She was 5 days about 5 or 6 days after her second full replacement, where a few hours after the surgery, they were waking her up off her ventilator, and the next day she was taking steps. Like, it was so much quicker. It's just like the heart needs something. If recovery goes well, it can go well quickly. And the problem is, though, with the heart, that if it doesn't go well, it's very scary and can be very long. So we've been blessed that she has had quick recoveries, and hopeful for more in the future.
Well, I think that, first of all, like, how amazing is it when you just see, when you get that, like, that change, like, for her to have that. She's 3 weeks. It's scary. We don't know what the diagnosis is. To have the surgery, that's scary. Acutely, it is the most terrifying experience you'll ever have in your life. And then you just see this skyrocket, like that feeling of relief must have just been unreal.
It really was. And especially to be told after surgery, I was already talking to the surgeon about when we could take her home and everything. And he had to stop me and tell me, like, the next 24 hours are critical. So let's take it an hour at a time, and you can't ask me about a week from now. And so I remember being so scared, but so then to hear that and see her in those 24 hours, and then, 5-6 days later, how
talking about discharge.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh my God. And how's Milana doing now?
She's doing amazing. Thank you. She's in second grade. She is the best big sister. She gets checkups every 3 to 6 months on her heart. She'll get an echo done and an EKG, and check up with her cardiologist that we follow up with here in Columbus. And actually, her latest echo showed her heart. They were telling us her heart looked as healthy as the healthiest it's ever been. So we were really relieved to hear that, and we'll just keep on with the checkups and kind of kick the soccer ball further down the field. But she's really thriving, and she just loves life.
So these checkups are just becoming like routine now. It's just you're going in, you're doing it, everything looks good. See you in 6 months kind of thing.
Yeah.
So our last couple of appointments with Evvy's cardiologist have kind of started having that feel, and it feels good. It feels good to be to have some confidence, and it kind of like, and tell me if you experience this sometimes. It's kind of getting to a point where I'll go like a couple of days without even thinking that Evvy has like a malfunctioning heart or like a reconfigured heart. It's only, and a lot of the times, like, I don't even see a scar. Like, it's just become like part of getting dressed, and every couple of days it'll just kind of hit me like, oh yeah, like you guys kind of in that zone where you kind of, yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful part of it, because sometimes I wonder if that's a good thing or not, that I forget, but then I remind myself that it is, because it means that she's doing really well, and we're able to treat her like we treat the others, and kind of just go with the flow and throw on her shirt without noticing her scar, just like we throw on the brothers' shirts without realizing, so yeah, I think that's an amazing part of it, to be able to look at her that way. And I definitely, both Nick and I sometimes are like, well, yeah, we really went through all that.
Yeah, it's wild to think, and like, we were so in it. When that's going through, you're so in it, and you're immersed, and you're just trying to be everything you can for Milana, and for Nick, and Nick for you, and like, I'm trying to be there for Lesley, and you're so immersed in the intensity. And now throw in the fact of the context of what's going on, and you kind of almost forget or don't realize the significance of what's happening. Like a lot of people, and I'm sure you've experienced this, say like, you're so strong, I can't believe you're doing this, or things like that. But like at the time, it's like you're not doing anything outside of what you just need to do. Like you're not even thinking like this is a crazy thing. It's like head down, head down, grind mode. Like we gotta figure this out. There's no thinking about what it is because we got a lot to navigate here.
Yeah, exactly. You said it perfectly. We've been asked that a lot, like, how do you do it? Or how did you do it? And it's just like, you just do it. You would do it too. You just
Yeah, exactly.
have to. And you have to, like you said, put your head down and just forge through. And that's what we felt we did. We just went through it, and then we kind of dealt with the aftermath afterwards. It was like, then after it was kind of through the woods, then we looked back and reflected, and they kind of hit us later on. It didn't really even hit us in the moment. It hit us later on, where we had to come to terms with it all and realize what the course of the future would look like. And whereas at the time it was like, we're not worried about the future, we're worried about right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so like Nick took a leave, right? So that like during those, like he just kind of took time, or was he kind of going through all of this from various parts of the country as his team traveled, or like?
So it was a little bit of both. He took small leaves where he could. In the beginning, when she was diagnosed, he was actually in Detroit about to play a game and got the call and had to come back. And so he had left after her birth to go play, came back, took a few days while we figured everything out. Then he went back to play until surgery came. And actually, my mom came to Boston with me, with Milana. The team would have been supportive of whatever his decision was, but our whole thing was we wanted him around more for like the after part of it, for the recovery. And,
Right.
and so we had to kind of plan like the days that he would be there versus the days that he wasn't.
Right.
So he flew in early the morning of the surgery, and then took a little leave after the surgery. And then the whole recovery process, when we had to stay locally in Boston, he was playing.
Right.
And the way that the world works and the universe works is he actually played twice in Boston during the month that we were there. He played twice in Boston, so he was able to come and visit her in the hospital. And then the last game that he played, he stayed an extra day, and then we were all able to fly home after her recovery. So the way that it all worked out was very meant to be, and it just kind of
Destiny,
all.
man. That's got to say something. That's got to say something about destiny in some way.
Absolutely, we believe that.
Whew. That's crazy. That's a what. Just having that conversation is always a wild ride, man. Oh wow. So you and Nick, um, obviously very impacted now by Boston's Children's Hospital and Nationwide Children's Hospital. You guys decide to donate $1 million between the two. How did that conversation come about? Kind of what went into it, and how did you guys decide where at the hospital the funds were allocated to?
When Milana was first diagnosed, Nick and I always had so much open communication about it all. And from the beginning, the main thing for us was that once we get through this, we need to give back. We need to give back to these amazing hospitals that have given us a family. Like without them, who knows where we would be, and what situation Milana would be in. And so it was always in the back of our minds. And when we just went through the motions and we got a little bit further down the road, and she had had a couple minor surgeries and just so many follow-ups in Columbus, it's like we looked at each other one day and we were like, okay, it's time. Like, now we're going to sit down. We sat down with our financial advisor and we were like, this is what we want to do. And we got in touch with the foundation people at Boston and at Nationwide, and they were both amazing in figuring out where the funds would go. In Boston, we knew we wanted to support the research that her surgeon was doing and her cardiologist there was doing. Her cardiologist there is really heavily involved in fetal surgeries and just diagnosis in utero and doing surgeries in utero. And so we knew that we wanted money to go to him. And then Milana's surgeon, I feel like he's got his hand in so many different research projects, but he's growing stem cells to try to be able to put your own tissue back in as your own valve, and just amazing researches that are just beyond even, like, I can't even explain them in layman's terms, I feel like. But so that we knew that's where we wanted the money to go there. And then in Columbus, they were gracious to name the research lab, the cardiac research lab, after our family, and just being able to visit their research lab there and seeing where our money was going to, which is heavily at the time in the valve realm as well. It's just really neat to see it all come together. And now we just hope to be able to support as much research throughout the world that we can. And just, it's really great to be able to follow this research that they're doing too, and see how far they've come.
You said stem cells, and that's something that is so interesting to me. And I think that's like the most exciting thing in the future of not only the heart, but like surgeries in general. Like, if we could take our own body and use that to create components to be used in our own bodies, like, that seems like that's the best possible outcome. So that's so cool that that the monies that you guys are funding to these hospitals is going towards. I think it's super important, and you guys have been on the kind of the cusp with your whole kind of journey through this medical system, because you did an experimental surgery for Milana's replacement. And I think that's where we have to kind of focus our kind of energy. As I say us, like I'm in it, but like the medical community in general, to be on that frontier, is really cool. Stem cells, just the concept of stem cells is so wild. Like, let's grow you your own mitral valve. That's the move here. We don't need the cow's jugular or the pig. We're just gonna create a mitral valve from you that we can then use.
Amazing.
Crazy. And you guys didn't stop there. You guys you and Nick recently founded the Heart's Playbook, which is a foundation I mentioned on the top of the show that's committed to kind of supporting and promoting heart health, heart research, and heart care. So it's funny that you say your surgeon is big into research and stuff, because our surgeon, Everett's surgeon, Dr. Honjo, he's the same. He's like the surgeon at Sick Kids, who he's teaching, he's in all these crazy research studies. Milana, speaking of research studies, I had this conversation when I had Caitlin, who has had my last guest, Caitlin O'Brien. She's had 50 surgeries at Sick Kids. She was diagnosed with Bacterial syndrome, and we were talking about the importance of being a part of these research studies, because what we're going through as the patient, I say we're because like we're a team, but the kids who are going through these things, if we can extract as much information as possible and use that information to better help the people who are coming behind. Like you said, Milana was surgery number 17 in the world. Since then, there's been another 70. And that is the surgeries that are happening today are being powered by the information that is being gathered from the ones that have come before that. So any study in any regard, whether it be heart, kidney, cognitive, anything that came up when they asked us if Everett can be a participant, we pushed all the chips in, because it's like, if Evvy's experiences can help some other kids, like, we're all for it.
Yeah, exactly. And we feel the same way. And that's part of the reason why we have decided to share Milana's story so much. And because, you know, with Nick's platform, her experience was public from the beginning, and we weren't sure what that would look like for her, but we decided that, like you said, if her experiences could help even just one child, then that's what we want to do. We were introduced to Boston Children's from another heart family that maybe had we not, we would be in a completely different situation had she not had that original first surgery. And so we were like, if we can bring awareness to what is going on and what she's been through, then if we can help somebody down the road, then that's what it's all about for us. And so that's kind of just been our motto from the beginning.
Yeah. So how do you guys strike that balance? That's something that Lesley and I are very thoughtful of, and parent to parent is something that, you know, I'd be very curious as to how you guys approach it, is striking that balance between wanting to use our children's kind of experiences as kind of ways to motivate, inspire, or to guide people, whether it's heart related or just difficult situations in general, and balance that between you know, not having them be defined by their heart condition. And now that as Everett's getting older and that Milana's kind of getting a little bit older and she's starting to develop her own personality, what that, you know, how that works with respect to the privacy related to how she wants her life being shared with the world.
Yeah, so with Nick's job and his platform, like I just mentioned, it was a little bit public from the beginning, and so we had to decide how much of it we would be willing to share. And having had those earlier conversations from the beginning when she was a baby, it was more about like, no, we want to be able to help as many people as possible. Then, like you mentioned, as she's gotten older, now she's in it more, she understands what's going on, and so we just have brought her into it, and we have just a lot of communication, and we talk to her a lot about it, and she's involved with everything that we do. And if we're asked to do anything, or if she's asked to do anything, we would never force her to do anything that she's not comfortable with. But as far as Nick and I, from the beginning, we just felt like this deep calling to make a difference by sharing our experience and Milana's experience from the beginning. And now seeing her grow up with it and with what we've established, she is so much a part of it, and she's so interested in it. And she'll ask, you know, what is being said, and she'll want to take the pictures, and, you know, Mom, this could help somebody. And like, she's just very super involved. And with the book and the foundation now, I can just see her soaring with it, but always keeping her privacy in mind, that if she doesn't want to be a part of it, we would never force her for that. But she's, up to now, has been very comfortable with it all, and so we'll see where it goes, I guess.
That's so amazing. Like, that must be so awesome to see your daughter be like, I want to help these other kids. Like, I want to make a difference. And at such a young age, that must be, as a mom, so nice to see. You said foundation, the Heart's Playbook, a foundation dedicated to supporting and promoting heart care, heart research, heart health in general. Tell us more about it. What's your mission, your goals? What is at the heart of what you guys want to achieve?
I think when we decided we were going to make that personal donation, we knew we didn't want to end it there. We knew we could make future personal donations, and that's still in the plans, but having seen what the Foligno family has done with like the Janice Foligno Foundation in Ontario, where they've raised amazing funds for the cancer community and they've bought equipment, we had a vision of what that would look like surrounding the heart. And we wanted to make sure that we could reflect both sides of the border. We wanted the money in Canada to stay in Canada that was raised there, and the money raised in the US to stay in the US, so that we can support research and families and hospitals. And it's still very much in the early stages because it was just founded probably like 6 months ago, but we're learning as we go. But we definitely want a large focus on research, and just having come across these families who struggle financially to get through everything, and their lodging and how long their hospital stays are. We want to really be able to support them if we can, and advance research and bring awareness and help in any possible avenue that we can surrounding heart health and heart organizations. And so we've kept it pretty vague in our mission statement, so that we can branch off and
do everything.
Our help, we can help them.
That's cool that you guys are focusing on both the research side and the actual patient side. You guys are making an impact on kind of both ends, which is huge, because as important as it is to further the research, you have firsthand experience of what it's like to be in those trenches. So, and I don't, like, you can tell me what the situation is down in Columbus and in the States, but the support systems that are in place that we were able to kind of tap into, that are in place to support families that are going through these medical crises, is insane. Between the Sick Kids Foundation and everything that they do from a patient-centered approach of making things as comfortable as possible while we're in there, to Ronald McDonald House, which was, like, obviously outside of Everett's care, the most important kind of resource to us, because it allowed us to live basically next door to the hospital, at very little cost relative to the grand scheme of things. Even at Mount Sinai, there was a philanthropic family that funded a 2-bedroom apartment really close to the hospital, where we lived for a couple of weeks between Evvy's diagnosis and when he was born. What kind of systems are in place? Is there a Ronald McDonald House in Columbus?
There is, yeah, it's directly across the street from the hospital.
There's 2 things on the foundation that I want to talk about. I guess it doesn't matter which order we talk about them in. So let me segue into this. So back to the foundation. You guys also just recently published a children's book called Dear Heart. Was that kind of on the radar before the foundation was started, or was that kind of the foundation's first order of business, so to speak?
So a little bit of both. The book idea came before the idea of the foundation in the sense of launching. The idea of the foundation was always in our mind after our personal donation. So we always knew we would eventually do it. But then when I started with the book process, it just kind of fell into place where it was like, okay, now it's time, I think, to bring in the foundation so that we can put all the funds from the book into the foundation and then be able to grow it and have the book be, like you said, little first order of business. And so, because we knew already that 100% of the proceeds from the book was going to go to something heart related. And so it just felt natural to start the foundation at the time. So it was a little bit of a scramble to get the foundation going at the time that the book was about to launch, because it was a little bit of an afterthought to do it in that moment. But we had a lot of great people in place to help us out and navigate the waters. But so they kind of went hand in hand.
That's hilarious. It's like, okay, so we got this foundation on the go. Let's write this book. And then it's like, okay, guys, the book's coming out. Like, we got to get this foundation off the ground.
Exactly how it went, which was a little bit backwards, but it turned out great.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Well, the book writing process went really smoothly then. That's amazing.
Well, it did, because it was a poem that I wrote for Milana that lived in my phone for a year. And then one day I decided to put it into a book. It didn't start off as an idea for a book. It started off as a poem for her. And then I met an illustrator, and then I asked her if she'd be willing to illustrate this poem, and one thing led to another. So it was really easy because it was just a poem that I wrote kind of while she was recovering. So.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's awesome. I just to see that now, like that poem, that is something that was so intimate in your heart, to see that now kind of brought to life and be able to do what that poem's purpose was for you, is now helping parents and children also that are going through this. So that's awesome. And was that a tough decision? Was that a tough decision to share that, like something so intimate as that?
It wasn't, because when we found out that Milana was to have her second open heart surgery when she was 5, now she knew what was about to happen. We had to kind of explain it to her, and I had been on the search for books to be able to have her relate to ahead of this second surgery, because she didn't remember the one as a baby. And on this search for a book, I couldn't really find anything that I really resonated with. And so now that I had this poem, the light bulb went off, like I was searching for this. And so if I could put this out there, not only for Milana, but for anybody else who's looking for empowerment and along their journey, then this could be that for them.
So it was literally born because you were looking for books to have Milana relate, couldn't find any, and you're like, well, you know what? This can really help some people.
Yeah, and it's not so much a resource, an educational resource to teach them about their heart. It's more of like an empowerment piece that like their heart is special and they have this journey for a reason and they need to shine their light.
And you know what, that is more, I would say more important at the time that they're going through that, because at the end of the day, as a kid going through it, or as a parent going through it, or whatever that looks like, the actual heart health, the actual heart technical information is secondary compared to how we're going to survive this thing. And what the book does, and thank you for sending Evvy a copy, by the way. That was you have possibly the most elegant handwriting I have ever seen.
Teacher handwriting.
Pardon?
Teacher handwriting, I call it.
Yeah, it is like it's actually quite beautiful. But what, like in reading it, it really does, it would give kids like this kind of it can relate to kids and kind of arm them with emotional tools to kind of navigate these waters that they're going through.
Yeah, that was the hope for it, for sure. And it started off with just what I want Milana to feel. And that translates to what any heart parent would want their child to feel when they look back on their journey with their congenital heart defect and their surgeries and stuff. So thanks for saying that.
Amazing. And then you guys took this a next step further and you brought the main character of the book to life. And now Ticker the Heart is entering children's lives all across North America. So who came up with that idea? Was that your brainchild?
No, so what's really beautiful about the process is that the grandparents have been an integral piece from the beginning, from taking care of us in the hospital, from visiting us in the hospital, to watching our other kids when Milana was having her surgery, and then fast forward to helping us with the foundation and fulfilling orders, and just from one step to the next. And so it was only natural that my father-in-law, Mike, was loving on the book and said, wouldn't it be cool if we had a stuffed animal of the character? And I remembered that the illustrator who did my book has done plush animals in the past. And so I asked her if she would be able to do it. And she was. And so it just, again, happened very quickly. But then we didn't have a name. And so I was mentioning it to my mom, and I said, we're trying to find a name. And she, like, without skipping a beat, said Ticker. And so it was like the grandparents
kind of
coming into it. It was really a beautiful creative process.
That is awesome. Little tag team effort on that one.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Well, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to, just as an aside, you're talking about how important your parents are, and Nick's parents, your parents were, and Nick's parents were in the whole process. And I want to use this as an opportunity to thank my parents and thank Lesley's parents, mom and dad, Sandra and Patty. None of this would be possible without the support of you guys. So thank you very much for everything that you guys have done for us in the last 3.5 years, and we love you with all of our hearts, because they did the same thing, Janelle. They would, like, my mom and Lesley's parent, like my mom was retired, Lesley's parents were retired. They would come down for weeks at a time to like live at Ronald McDonald House. So with Zoe, so that Lesley and I can be like committed to being at the hospital full time, and just the care packages being sent and coming for day trips to visit just for support and just being around. And it's impossible to quantify the support that they've given, and just want to use this as an aside to say thank you. But with the book, so we have Tickers in everyone's lives now. Is this a one-off with the book, or do you see your children's author career continuing past now?
I don't know. Right now, the focus is on Dear Heart and Ticker for sure, and just growing the foundation. And I'll never say no. We'll just see what organically happens. But I did really love the process. And so you never know. We'll see.
Is Ticker going to become like the mascot for the whole foundation now? Like, I guess, like,
I see that.
I see like a full human-sized costume and coming out to events that you guys have.
That's going to be Nick's retirement plan. Maybe he'll be
Nick's
him up in Ticker. That's a good idea.
And but the Dear Heart isn't the only project. You guys, in 6 months, not only have you got a book off the ground, but you've also got this really sick NF71 line.
Yeah, that was
that you guys did in partnership with 614 Sports.
Yeah, they came to Nick, and it was so generous of them to offer a big portion of the proceeds to go to the foundation. They had this vision of a logo, which we love. It's a really great logo.
Oh yeah, look at this.
I know, it looks so good.
So sharp.
So that was a beautiful partnership that came about. Again, that was really quickly. It was all at the same time. I think Nick was in the works with that while I was in the works with the book, and it just came together at the same time. So we bombarded everybody with all this stuff. But I think that's something, just like the book, it's something that if you don't have now, down the road, you can still get, and it'll still be relevant, and the proceeds go to a great cause.
That's awesome. Well, I just want to, first of all, when I posted that I got this hoodie, the response from the people that of in my kind of circles was crazy. Like, you guys did a bang up job with how it looks. I just want to give a little view here. It's got, I think the coolest part is this Captain C right there. The Captain C is a nice touch, and the hockey lace drawstrings are a beautiful little cherry on top. And funny story, I don't know if it's funny, but interesting story about this hoodie is that it became almost like my uniform for a wildly successful run of like over a dozen disc golf rounds where I was just throwing personal bests. I went like, honestly, it's unfathomable how good of a run I went on. And I didn't wash the hoodie for a month because exactly. I honestly didn't wash the hoodie for a month because I was like, I can't risk this. Like, I went from shooting like +3s average to like setting personal best of -6, then -7, then -9. Now I'm at -11. So I might have to, instead of washing it, just continue purchasing them and have multiple hoodies hanging in the closet and just have them live on forever.
That's awesome.
Okay, so give us like a quick hit, like a little stat or fact about the heart that you think that the audience would find interesting.
Actually, the one that stood out the most for me going through this whole process was that congenital heart defects is actually the most common birth defect ever. And so it was something that really wasn't on my radar at all until we had Milana, and I actually thought that it was more rare than it is in fact. And to know that 1 of 4 of those congenital heart defects are critical, and the other 3 might be diagnosed even later on in life. You know, sometimes you'll hear about these young adults that go through life and then they'll collapse one day on the sports field or something, and the doctors will find a congenital heart defect that wasn't maybe necessarily found when they were a baby because they weren't sick or they wouldn't do any routine tests. You're not routinely getting an echocardiogram on your heart
Right.
if you think something's wrong, and so it'll go a really long time without being diagnosed. So just the gamut of what congenital heart defects can look like and just how prominent it is. I didn't realize that until we were one of the statistics.
Yeah. And one of the scary things that if it does go those years without getting diagnosed, you lose out on that kind of that really sensitive window of catching it early, right? Where if it has years to kind of negatively impact the rest of the body's systems, the kind of the more difficult that actual surgery or that treatment and recovery process is, which by the sounds of it, and with Milana's, the way that you kind of describe Milana's course of treatment is, it's like you guys caught it pretty early for, like, it didn't have a chance to have a massive impact, so that when you guys got that, when she got that valve repair, like that was the missing link. The repair, the mitral valve was damaged. It got replaced. Pardon me. Mitral valve was damaged. It got replaced, and now the body is operating as it should. On the flip side of that, what happened with Evvy is that his tricuspid valve was malformed for a long time. So by the time we caught it, there was so much regurgitation back into that right atrium that we had to do the whole, Fontaine physiology and everything that has come with Everett's course of treatment. But like talking about Evvy, he's 3 and he's not yet quite at an age 3.5, and he's not really yet at an age where he understands his condition or what it means or what his future looks like. Either he doesn't know that or he's just not at a place where he can verbalize that. Now that Milana is getting older, does she have questions about what's been going on or what her future looks like? I know you mentioned earlier that she's keen to have an impact, but what do those conversations look like as a parent with a son who's going through it / will be going through it? This is kind of a way for me to look into Evvy's future. So like what do these conversations look like that you and Nick are having with Milana?
To be honest, up until about 3.5, like you're mentioning, we didn't really even speak about it much to her. We would call her heart her special heart. So would she would refer to her heart as her special heart. And she didn't really have any questions about her scar or anything like that until she became like probably closer to 4, where she would ask questions about mostly like the chest tube holes that she had questions about. And then it wasn't until she was 5 when we had 6 weeks to prepare for her open heart surgery, because we had found out that she had endocarditis and had to have her valve replaced, but they needed 6 weeks of IV antibiotics to kill the infection before they could go in and replace it. So that was like our moment of 6 weeks to focus on educating her and seeing if she does have questions and communicating with her so that she could have an understanding going into it. But what's really interesting and amazing about Milana is that she's always been kind of an old soul, we feel. I remember when she was 8 months old, a photographer was taking a picture of her, and he said, like, her eyes feel like they are staring deep inside me. He's like, this little girl gets it. She gets the world. And I remember that, and I just kept that with me. And several people have said that to me, that she just feels like an old soul, and she just has like this knowing. She can read people, she can read a room, she just gets it. It's the only way that I can explain it. And so part of me feels like we didn't even have to tell her anything. Like, she knew. But she's also really involved with asking the doctors questions. Now that she's a little bit older, we would laugh in the hospital because she would know exactly what the nurse had to do, and she was telling them what went where and asking them questions. But we did really take a lot of time to communicate with her in that 6 weeks prior to the latest open heart surgery to make sure that she understood, because we didn't want to make it seem like everything was going to be easy, because it wasn't, and she was going to have to be strong. And yes, it would hurt, but she is a very strong girl and she can get through it. So going into it, we didn't know how much of it she really retained. But when she woke up a few hours before we had to go to the hospital the morning of her surgery, she was physically ill, for 3 or 4 hours. She was ill with anxiety. Like she threw up for 4 hours because like she just knew. She knew exactly what she was about to go through. She knew what she was in for. And I don't think that was us telling her, because we didn't lay it all out. It was just like she just felt it. Like it's almost as if like she remembered her inner self from years ago and the experiences. And so I knew that she knew. And then just following in the recovery, we just made sure that the doctors and her had open communication. And she asked a lot of questions that just innately came to her without us having to prompt her. So I honestly believe it's within them, and they will find the understanding as they go along with it. I don't think it's something we necessarily have to like lay out the facts for them, because I think these kids just, they know.
How resilient are kids? Like, how inspired are you by just how innately, like, that's their baseline is just steadfast survival?
Absolutely. And the doctors and nurses, they would all say that, like, don't worry, kids are resilient. And you hear that, but once you see it and you experience it, it's something else.
It's crazy, which adds pressure, like good pressure, but it adds pressure to us as parents, because we may have strayed away from that steadfast survival resiliency, right? In our life experiences. So we know, like, it's like, hey, these kids have baseline system of operations. Like, we can't be hampering this in any way. So we have to pick up our socks and like really be there, because we don't want to negatively impact their ability to just do their thing as kids. And one thing that we've kind of, I don't want to speak for Lesley, but myself, one thing that I've kind of been, and I say grateful is, it's a weird word to say right now, but it's kind of been a good thing for me emotionally going through this as a parent, to have a child who is almost, non-communicative about the world being so young, because I was always like, oh my God, as hard as this is, how much harder would it be if Evvy was looking at me being like, Daddy, I don't want to go into surgery. Like, just rip the heart out of my chest right now. I don't even think I could handle it. So, but it seems like Milana, she was a little anxious at the beginning, but it almost seems like she was like ready to go for it. Almost like,
Yeah, like she physically had the anxiety piece where she was vomiting and, but not once did she say, I don't want to do this. It was, Nick and I look back on it and she just grinned and bared everything that came her way. Like, she was the strongest. It was like her body took over with the anxiety, but like her mind was right there and she was going through it. And so, yeah, we think up all this stuff for them, but the resiliency within them
yeah.
is incredible.
And how do you guys now, and in recovery, how do you guys strike the balance with Milana about that kind of like the parental instinct that we have to protect and to coddle and to cuddle and to make feel safe? Have you guys, like, how do you guys strike that balance between giving her everything she needs emotionally, but also at the same time making sure that she's developing independence and grit and everything that she needs to become and be a well-rounded little lady?
Yeah, I think a big part of that is communication, just communicating with her feelings that we have and that she has. And from the beginning, we just never wanted her to be treated differently. We knew that she might have different needs and certain things that she may not be able to do that others can, but we didn't want to have her defined by this. And just, you could be and do whatever you want. You can you know, you can really achieve anything and not having to set her aside from the others. And so that was big for Nick and I, just raising her, trying to raise her just the same way we would the boys. Um, and then we also just put in practice different things within our home, like meditation and, like I said, the communication piece. And just when her and I meditate, that's her time to tell me her feelings, and she opens up. She's a little bit of a guarded little girl. Nick describes her as having a big heart, but she takes a while to let you in it. And so she really needs that one-on-one time that we've realized we need to give her to be able to have her open up. And we're grateful that she does open up to us. But as far as like the independence and grit part, that she's had from the beginning. We knew, you can tell by her personality, she's always been the independent little girl. And then when you look at her, you see this petite, tiny little frame, but she can hold her own like the best of them. So that grit was just innate within her.
Like a lion in there, in that, like a lion soul. And I think that is just inbred into kids who are like Everett, Milana, like day one of their lives, they're coming in fighting, right? So I think that resiliency and that grit is just built in from day one. And I think, again, it's a really weird thing to say, but it's almost like, this is gonna probably be the weirdest thing I ever say, but it's almost like a blessing in disguise, if you could ever even imagine it as that, because they are just armed with tools that will set them up to be better set up for success. Because I think hard work, determination, grit are all one of the biggest factors in being a successful person, and resiliency and determination and right problem solving and heart and courage and confidence. And all of these things come with having to not just go through medical problems, but any challenge that you're faced with. If you have to overcome challenges, when you successfully get through those, even if you don't successfully get through them, in that process, you've gained.
Absolutely.
And you can attest to the fact that you are a very different, I don't want to say you are, but you're probably a different person now than you were before Milana was born. I consider myself a completely different person. I look at things a lot different. I have a different way of looking at the world. I've had to change the way I approach things because I don't necessarily have the same emotional capacity that I once did. So, you know, I say blessing in disguise. I gotta figure out a different way of saying it, because it's not. But it's almost like a choice. It's like you're presented with this challenging situation. Are you going to let this challenging situation destroy you, or are you going to use it as a building block and extract some value to maybe grow as a person, or reflect, or, build some personality traits to get you through that, which then will translate to life after?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you said choice, it made me think of a really good friend of ours who's been like a mentor to Nick. He's a leadership coach called Tim Kite, and he has an equation that is E plus R equals O. And so it's event plus response, which would be like your choice. Event plus response equals outcome. That's exactly what you're saying. It's just something happens. How you respond to it is what's ultimately going to determine the outcome of what it will look like in your life afterwards. So it's a really great way of looking at things. And we believe things happen for a reason. And when you say blessing in disguise, it just kind of all ties in together in that sense. Like, we've had obviously these big obstacles, but we know that we've gone through them for a reason, and we're better for it in the end.
When you say going through it for a reason, that really hits home for me, because that was at the beginning of Everett's journey. That was a really big thing for me, is that I felt this is going to be a very selfish feeling, but I felt kind of like, what did we do to deserve this? Like, Lesley and I were both great people. Like, we're good people. We're nice. We're kind. We're involved in the community. We work hard. Like, why us? And I know that's really selfish of a thought, but it's honestly a thought that I had. And the serendipity of what I'm about to tell you is insane, because that, I don't know if it was that day or if it was the next day, but it was very close in proximity to me having this thought. A friend of mine, Mick Weaver, reached out to me on Messenger and just hit me up with a message being like, Kris, I know you're being inundated with messages right now. Feel no pressure whatsoever to respond to this. Just want to let you know I'm thinking of you. And you're probably having this feeling of why you. And I'm like as if you just sent this to me. This is insane. But he's like, I want you to take comfort in the fact that we are not put into situations that we are not capable of, and you and Lesley are in this situation because Everett needs you and Lesley. And just as soon as I read that, it was like I just kind of entered a different kind of playing field where it was like it became less about how are we going to get through this to more of like, I have a job to do here, and that is to make sure that Everett is in the best possible emotional state that he can be to fight this fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's crazy that you say that. That's crazy that you say that, because that message from Mick will be in my heart and soul forever. It's imprinted on there, not only because of the support of what it was, but because of the timing that it came in and the impact that it had on not only how I felt in that moment, but like my approach to the entire situation. So Mick, thank you very much. I love you, buddy.
Yeah, and just the shift in your perspective. That's incredible.
Because that's all it takes. That's all it takes. Life is perspective, and it ties back into what we were saying about choice and the way you look at the world. And Tim's formula is so simple yet so true. I've been really loud on this choice thing since Evvy's been born, because I feel like the universe has now given me permission to talk really loudly about it because of what we're doing here. And I say we have no control over what the universe throws at us, but we have full control over what we do once we have it in our hands, right? And event plus action. No, what is it?
Response, event plus response.
Event plus response equals outcome. I think those two things are literally the exact same thing, just said in two different ways. Yeah, so it's all about mindset. It's all about approach, and everyone goes through struggles, A, differently, and B, struggles are different for other people. One thing that I have to always tell people, it comes up from time to time, is especially when it's close to a surgery date or if there's something acute happening, is we'll be talking and they'll bring something up that they're going through and they're like, oh, sorry, I shouldn't be complaining about something like that. And I'm like, dude, like, I'm here for you. That's why we're having these conversations. Like, don't judge what you're going through based on what I'm going through, because like, to you, this is what that was to me. So like, I'm here for you in any way you need. Like, hit me with it, you know?
You're totally right. And we've had those conversations too. And I always say it's relative. It's relative to all your situation. Like, first of all, yeah, I want to hear about what your kid's going through or what you're going through. It doesn't, in no way does it make me feel like you're not worried about my child. Like, it's
right.
Everything is relative, and what you are going through is a very big deal. What I'm going through with my child is a big deal, but what you're going through is a very big deal too. It's relative to everybody's situation. And so I can attest to what you're saying. Like, there's no comparison. It's just, we all need to just lift each other up.
Exactly. And so just gonna shift gears a little bit. At Sick Kids, there's a program called Bravery Beads, which I have tattooed on my chest. It's basically where kids, when they go through surgeries or procedures or other experiences like birthdays or transfers or injections, pokes, blood work, where they get a bead that's associated with that procedure. Do Boston's Children's or Nationwide Children's have a similar program or something like it?
As far as I know, they don't have like a beads program, which sounds like an incredible program for the kids. Really something that can inspire them and empower them with what they're going through and help them be proud of their beads. That's awesome. What I've noticed at Nationwide and Boston, they've always had artwork and things that the nurses or the nurses assistants would help make, and then they'd have like painters and stuff come by and do some stuff for them around their beds, but not a specific program like that. But it sounds like a really great program.
So the artists come and they paint the art that the kids have done?
So I've had artists come where they would, maybe I shouldn't say paint, but use like the dry erase, but I want to say painting because like what they'll make on their windows and on their doors is like a mural, like just beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Stuff. So, and we've seen that with each hospitalization that we've been through. So I know it's something that they do for each child, but yeah, not the Beats program. That sounds beautiful though.
That art must just like, it's just something that can just make, it's just one more thing to add a little bit of something special into the kids' lives, like make them feel something different, because the monotony of being in a hospital can get crazy. So I mean, to break that up with someone coming and doing this crazy art piece on your window, and in that moment you get to talk to them and it just feels like a different world, even if it's just for 20 minutes, 30 minutes or whatever. Anything that kids and parents can get, basically some semblance of not what a different reality is welcomed. At Sick Kids, they have these clowns that come through, and they'll visit the rooms. And when we were there was a dude named Ranger, and he would come and play the ukulele, had his little duck that he would pull along with him.
That's so great that they have.
Yeah, so it's nice that these hospitals, they recognize this, and they're putting systems in place, because to be able to kind of, because managing the child's heart or kidneys or lungs or whatever they're in there for is one thing, but you gotta handle their emotional needs as well, because not only is that critically important to them as people, but it'll make their experience better. It'll make and that will in turn translate into a more positive recovery, because the mind and the body and the spirit, I truly believe, are one system. And when they're all operating at efficiency, then you're going to be in a better place.
Definitely.
Cool. So like, what's wild is that this has been by far the most organic of the conversations.
Oh, good.
Like, Dylan's gonna have to work the hardest on this one.
Sorry, Dylan.
Sorry, Dylan. Because, and I guess that really speaks to how the similarities between us are quite staggering. Like, children's books, heart warrior children. Like we've been through a lot of the same things, and this has been the easiest conversation in the sense that I'm basically talking to like another form of myself, basically. And having a conversation with you has, I've asked a lot more questions, and I've had thoughts in the middle of this conversation that weren't even on these notes, just because I'm curious of your experiences. You're like my linebacker that's kind of been through what I'm going through. Like what I'm going through now, you were going through 4 years ago. So it's really cool, and I really appreciate you. We've gone over time, and I don't know, like, your son sleeps like a champ. This is a
No,
two and a half hour.
Nick's home. He's got them downstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
He
so wait,
probably
when you said put your son down at 110, where was he?
Nick was still at the rink, so Nick got back from the rink at like 2:30, and then the kids came off the bus at 3. And
Oh, so now, oh man, that's because the reason why I say that is because I've heard nothing, and I've seen nothing.
oh,
I'm like counting.
I hopefully you can't hear it. They're like running around downstairs, but
No, I can't hear a thing. But that's in stark contrast. I'm looking at the time, and Zoe's gonna be home from school. The stark contrast between your transition to mine is there's gonna be like the Lion King stampede happening, and like I thought it was gonna be happening around 3:30. So she must be jamming with Lesley's parents right now.
that's
But at
awesome.
any moment, like the roof can blow off this thing. Which is fortunate because we're at the last question,
Perfect. We'll wrap it up.
which is okay, Janelle. Final question. The name of this show is Gratitude City, so it's only fitting to ask, who or what are you most grateful for?
Yes. First of all, I love the name of the show, Gratitude City. That's something that we always strive to be as grateful every day. Nick and I follow the 5-minute journal. And so we each have our journals. And one of the questions that repeats every single day is 3 things that you're grateful for. So we reflect on that every day. And, but to think about something overall, it's hard because I really just feel like I have a very grateful heart for all things. So I guess I have to encompass it with just our journey or my journey, because my journey from the beginning to now it just kind of ties everything together. And one of my favorite quotes that I've shared with a lot of people that I love is about the journey, and just ties into a lot of the everything happens for a reason and everything. But basically it just explains that your journey might not be what you thought it would be, but it's exactly what it needs to be. And your journey is what it needs to be right now, and now is right on time. And so I am grateful for the journey, because although it has been a difficult one, it has shaped me as a person and as a mom, as a wife, and allowed me to have everything that I have today. And so I know it's a little bit of a cheat because it kind of brings everything all together.
I was gonna say that it was kind of a cheater answer because now every single thing is in there. But you know what? It's a unique answer.
Pick just one. I cannot pick just one.
You can't, and it's a very unique answer. I haven't got that one yet.
Now you're going to get it all the time because they're going to want to bring
It's the best answer because the journey makes us, right? Like we are a sum of our journey, basically.
Yeah.
And the fact that you took your journey could be something you are extremely ungrateful for if you didn't have the fortitude to make it through, and the emotional intelligence and everything that you need to just be there as a wife and as a mom and as a philanthropist. And you've been doing amazing things in this world, and you will continue to do that. And I want to express my gratitude to you with everything that you have going on, your schedule is insane between the book, the foundation, the kids, everything that you got going on, and the conversation that we had around the times that you had available to do this. Your schedule is crazy, and you made time to chat with me. So I just want to say thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I wish you all the best in every endeavor that you take on. And you can know that as the parent of a heart warrior, you have our support in any way, shape, or form that you need it.
Thank you so much, and good luck with what you're doing. It's wonderful.
And Janelle, with everything that you're up to, let us know where we can find you on social, where we can find the foundation, where we can find the book. Drop it all on us.
Thank you. Yeah, so our website kind of holds everything right now. It's heartsplaybook.com, and you can get the book there. Ticker is for sale there, and there's also a donate link if you did want to donate to the foundation. We've got it set up both sides of the border so that whether you're in Canada or the US, if you'd like to participate, and that's for the book as well. And then on Instagram right now, we are the Hearts Playbook, at the Hearts Playbook rather. And so that's where you can find us on social, and the Hearts Playbook on Facebook as well.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, hopefully this show drives a couple of people there, because I'm excited to help you guys and support you guys in any way that I can, not only as a thank you for you taking the time to be here today, but also as parents of a heart warrior ourselves. We want to do everything in our power to make sure that the Hearts Playbook is successful in your mission. So thank you very much for that. And everyone, that's where you can find Janelle and everything the Hearts Playbook.
Thank you.